The Kethvar battle fleet stretched across the void like a crimson tide of death. Admiral Zex-Tar watched from his flagship's command deck as plasma cannons tore through the defensive lines of the coalition forces. The defenders were brave, but courage meant little against the overwhelming firepower of the galaxy's most feared warrior race. "Status report," Zex-Tar commanded, his 4 arms working multiple control panels simultaneously. The bridge crew moved with deadly efficiency around him, their scaled hides gleaming under the red battle lighting. "Coalition forces down to 30% strength, Admiral," reported his tactical officer. "Their defensive grid is collapsing. Estimated victory in 14 standard minutes." Zex-Tar allowed himself a rare smile. The coalition had held out longer than expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. For 3,000 years, the Kethvar Empire had dominated this sector of the galaxy. No force could stand against them. The coalition ships were a mix of species: the elegant crystalline vessels of the Veltari, the bulky mining ships converted to warships by the Gromax, and the sleek interceptors of the Zephyrian Republic, all united in their desperate attempt to halt Kethvar expansion, all doomed to fail. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy surges from the coalition fleet," the sensor operator called out, confusion clear in her voice. "But the readings don't match any known weapon signatures." Zex-Tar frowned. The coalition was beaten. What could they possibly be planning? "Elaborate." "The energy is building in the center of their formation, but it's not coming from their ships. It's like space itself is charging up." On the main view screen, the battle raged on. Kethvar dreadnoughts pounded the remaining coalition vessels with relentless fury. Debris fields marked where entire squadrons had been obliterated. The coalition's defensive line was moments from complete collapse. Then space began to shimmer. At first, it was barely visible, a slight distortion in the starfield, like heat waves rising from hot metal. But the distortion grew stronger, more pronounced. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist in a sphere roughly 3 kilometers across. "What in the 7 hells is that?" Zex-Tar demanded. His science officer worked frantically at her console. "Unknown energy signature, Admiral. It's unlike anything in our databases. The spatial distortion is increasing exponentially." The distortion pulsed once, twice, then stabilized into a perfect sphere of twisted space. For a moment, the entire battlefield went silent. Both fleets seemed frozen, watching the impossible phenomenon unfold before them. Then, without warning, the sphere vanished. In its place hung a ship. Zex-Tar had seen vessels from across the galaxy. He had commanded fleets that conquered 100 worlds, faced the war machines of dozens of species. But he had never seen anything like this. The ship was massive, easily dreadnought class, but its design was completely alien. Where Kethvar vessels were angular and aggressive, this ship had flowing lines that seemed almost organic. Its hull was a deep blue-black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange protrusions jutted from its surface at irregular intervals, pulsing with a soft blue glow. "Sensors, analyze that vessel immediately," Zex-Tar ordered, trying to keep the unease from his voice. "Attempting scan now, Admiral." A pause. "Sir, our sensors are having difficulty penetrating their hull. The material appears to be some kind of adaptive armor that's actively deflecting our probe beams." The mysterious ship hung motionless in space, seemingly unaffected by the battle raging around it. Coalition ships began to move, clearly as surprised by its appearance as the Kethvar fleet. But they didn't fire on it. If anything, they seemed to be moving to protect it. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. Put it through." The view screen flickered, and suddenly Zex-Tar found himself looking at something that made his blood run cold. The being on screen was tall and lean, with pale skin and strange features. Its eyes were a piercing blue, and when it smiled, Zex-Tar felt an involuntary shiver run down his spine. "Greetings," the being said in perfect Kethvar, though its accent was unlike any Zex-Tar had heard. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran vessel Prometheus. You are in violation of galactic accords regarding territorial sovereignty. You have 30 seconds to withdraw your forces." Zextar's shock quickly turned to rage. Terran? There is no species called Terran in any star chart. Identify yourself properly. Alien? The being, this Captain Chen tilted her head slightly. We prefer to be called humans, actually. And you've just wasted 5 seconds of your 30-second warning. Warning? Zexvar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. You dare threaten the Kethvar Empire with a single ship? I command 200 vessels, each one capable of cracking a planet's crust. Impressive, Chen replied with that same unsettling smile. We'll try to leave some debris for your historians to study. 15 seconds, Admiral. The sheer audacity of it left Zextar speechless for a moment. Then, fury took hold. All ships. Target that vessel. I want it vaporized. The Kethvar fleet turned as one. Hundreds of massive warships bringing their weapons to bear on the lone human vessel. Energy cannons charged to full power. Missile tubes loaded, and quantum torpedoes armed for maximum destruction. Fire! Zextar roared. The void erupted in light and fury. Enough firepower to destroy a small moon streaked toward the human ship. Energy beams that could cut through asteroid fields, missiles with antimatter warheads, and weapons that could tear apart molecular bonds themselves, all focused on a single target. The human ship didn't even attempt to evade. The barrage struck home with devastating force, creating an explosion visible from light years away. When the energy dissipated and the sensors cleared, Zextar expected to see empty space where the arrogant alien vessel had been. Instead, the human ship hung exactly where it had before, completely unharmed. Not a single scorch mark marred its hull. Not one system showed damage. It was as if the greatest military force in the galaxy had thrown pebbles at a mountain. Impossible, Zextar whispered. Captain Chen's image reappeared on the view screen. Well, that was rude, she said, brushing an imaginary speck of dust from her uniform. I suppose introductions are over. The human ship began to move. It didn't accelerate gradually like normal vessels. One moment it was stationary. The next, it was moving at impossible speed, weaving between Kethvar ships like a dancer through frozen statues. Point defense systems couldn't track it. Targeting computers couldn't lock onto it. It moved like it was defying the very laws of physics. As it moved, weapons emerged from hidden ports along its hull. But these weren't weapons any Kethvar had ever seen. Beams of pure silver light lanced out, and wherever they touched Kethvar ships, the results were catastrophic. The first beam struck the heavy cruiser Talmeth directly amidships. The massive vessel simply came apart. Not exploded, not melted. It disintegrated into its component atoms in the space of a heartbeat. The second beam caught a squadron of fighters. They vanished without even a flash of light. The third beam carved through a dreadnought's shields as if they weren't there. Then through the hull. Then through the ship itself. The dreadnought split in half, its 2 sections tumbling away into space. Evasive maneuvers, Zextar screamed. All ships, evasive maneuvers, but there was nowhere to run. The human ship moved like lightning given form, its weapons reaching out to touch ship after ship. Each touch meant death. Not just destruction, but complete obliteration. Ships that had weathered 1,000 battles were reduced to cosmic dust in seconds. The Kethvar fleet, the most powerful military force in known space, was being systematically dismantled by a single vessel. How is this possible? Zextar's tactical officer gasped, watching in horror as another wave of ships simply ceased to exist. On the view screen, Captain Chen's image remained calm and composed. Your 30 seconds are up, Admiral. I did try to warn you. The human ship paused in its dance of destruction, hovering directly in front of Zextar's flagship. At this distance, he could see details of its hull, the subtle patterns in its armor, the way energy seemed to flow beneath its surface like blood through veins. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. This is impossible, Zextar said, though he wasn't sure if he was speaking to Chen or to himself. Our intelligence networks span the galaxy. We would have known if a species with this level of technology existed. Would you? Chen asked. Your intelligence networks monitor known shipping lanes, established colonies, recognized civilizations. They don't monitor the spaces between, the quiet places where nobody thinks to look. The dark sectors, Zextar breathed. The vast regions of space considered too dangerous or unprofitable to explore. Regions where ships went missing and sensor readings made no sense. You've been hiding in the dark sectors. Hiding is such an ugly word, Chen replied. We prefer to think of it as avoiding unnecessary complications. We've been watching your empire expand for quite some time, Admiral. Watching and evaluating. What do you want? What we've always wanted. Peace. The right for all species to exist without fear of conquest or subjugation. The Kethvar Empire has grown too large, Admiral. Too aggressive. Too confident in its own supremacy. Around them, the battle had effectively ended. The coalition forces hung back, clearly as stunned as the Kethvar by what they had witnessed. Of Zextar's mighty fleet, perhaps 50 ships remained, and they dared not move for fear of drawing the human vessel's attention. You speak of peace while committing slaughter, Zextar accused, though his words lacked conviction. I speak of balance, Chen corrected. For 3 millennia, the Kethvar Empire has expanded unchecked. You've conquered, enslaved, and destroyed. You've grown fat and complacent on the suffering of others. But every empire reaches its limits eventually, Admiral. Today, you've reached yours. The human ship began to move again. But this time it approached slowly, almost gently. As it drew near, Zextar could feel his ship's hull groaning under some unknown force. Not malicious, merely the byproduct of technologies beyond his understanding. I'm going to offer you something your empire has never offered its enemies, Admiral, Chen said. A choice. What choice? Withdraw from this system and all territories acquired in the last 50 years. Return them to their original inhabitants. Begin the process of dismantling the slave worlds. Transform your empire from a conquering force into a protective one. Zextar's laugh was bitter. And if I refuse, then we stop hiding, Chen said simply. There are more ships like the Prometheus, Admiral. Many more. And patience is not infinite, not even ours. The implications hit Zextar like a physical blow. If this single ship could destroy most of his fleet, what could a dozen do? 100? 1,000? You would commit genocide against my people? We would do what we've always done, Chen replied. Maintain the balance. The Kethvar people would survive. They always have. But the Kethvar Empire? She shrugged. Empires are temporary things, Admiral. People are eternal. For long moments, silence stretched across space. Zextar looked at the remains of his fleet, at the coalition ships hanging motionless in the void, at the impossible human vessel that had changed everything with its appearance. I must consult with the High Command, he finally said. Of course. Chen nodded. You have 72 standard hours. After that, we'll assume you've chosen to maintain the status quo, and we'll respond accordingly. The human ship began to fade, not moving away but literally becoming translucent, as if it was sliding back into whatever impossible space it had emerged from. Oh, and Admiral? Chen's voice carried clearly, even as her image began to waver. Don't bother trying to track us. We've had 3,000 years to perfect the art of not being found. Your technology might as well be stone knives and bearskins compared to what we've developed in the dark between the stars. With that, the ship vanished completely, leaving no trace that it had ever existed except for the debris field where half of the Kethvar fleet had once been. Zextar slumped in his command chair, his mind reeling. In the span of minutes, everything he thought he knew about the galaxy had been shattered. The Kethvar Empire, supreme for 3 millennia, had been revealed as nothing more than children playing with toys. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humans waited and watched, and the galaxy would never be the same again. High Command Fortress, Keth Mortis, had stood for 2,000 years, its black spires reaching toward the stars like claws. Built from the compressed matter of conquered worlds, It served as the beating heart of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Today, its halls echoed with something they had never contained before: fear. Admiral Zextar stood before the Council of War Leaders, his report complete. The silence that followed was deafening. 7 of the most powerful military minds in the galaxy sat frozen, trying to process what they had just heard. Supreme War Leader Gaxton was the first to speak, his voice a low rumble that seemed to shake the chamber walls. "You're telling us that a single alien vessel destroyed over half of Battlefleet Prime?" "Yes, Supreme War Leader. And this vessel appeared from nowhere, using technology we cannot understand or counter?" "Correct. And these humans claim to have more such ships hidden in the dark sectors." Zextar nodded grimly. "Many more, according to their captain. They've been watching us for 3,000 years, developing their technology while we believed ourselves supreme." Quote, War Leader Yexmara slammed her armored fist on the council table. "Impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected such a civilization. No species could remain hidden that long. Could they?" Zextar activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red-marked Keithvar territory, a vast swath covering nearly a quarter of known space. But between the red areas lay dark zones, unmarked regions where few dared to travel. "Look at what we don't control. Look at the spaces we've ignored because they offered no strategic value." The dark sectors appeared as black voids between the established trade routes and colonized systems. Regions where sensor readings behaved strangely, where ships reported equipment malfunctions and navigation errors, areas the Kethvar had dismissed as cosmic anomalies, too dangerous or unprofitable to investigate. "Clever," admitted War Leader Nexrath grudgingly. "Hide in the places where others fear to look." But how could they develop such advanced technology without resources, without established infrastructure? Who says they didn't have infrastructure? Supreme War Leader Gaxton's eyes glowed with a dangerous light. What if these humans have been building their civilization in the dark zones for millennia? What if everything we thought we knew about the galaxy's history is wrong? The implications sent a chill through the chamber. The Kethvar had risen to power by conquering the known civilizations. But what if there had always been others? Others who chose to remain hidden, watching, waiting. "There's something else," Zextar said quietly. "The coalition forces. They weren't surprised by the human ship's appearance. Not as much as they should have been. You think they knew? I think they've been in contact with humans before. The timing was too perfect. Our fleet was moments from victory when that ship appeared." War Leader Tixvara leaned forward, her scarred features twisted in thought. "If the humans have been watching us for 3,000 years, they've seen every battle, every strategy, every tactic we've ever used. They know us better than we know ourselves, while we know nothing about them." Gaxton finished. "Except that they can make our most powerful ships simply cease to exist." The council chamber fell silent again. For 3 millennia, the Kethvar had ruled through strength. Their ships were the fastest, their weapons the deadliest, their warriors the fiercest, but strength meant nothing against an enemy who could erase you from existence with a thought. "What are our options?" War Leader Yexmara asked. "Limited," Zextar admitted. "We could attempt to evacuate the disputed territories, as they demanded. Begin the process of restructuring the empire. Retreat?" Nexrath's voice dripped with disgust. "The Kethvar Empire does not retreat. The alternative might be extinction," Zextar pointed out. "I saw what their weapons could do. If they have a fleet of such vessels, we don't know that they do," Gaxton interrupted. Perhaps this was a bluff. One ship, however advanced, against the entire empire. Even they couldn't manufacture hundreds of vessels with that level of technology. "Are you willing to bet the survival of our civilization on that assumption?" Before Gaxton could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the fortress. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in pulsing red, and the voice of the fortress commander echoed through the speakers. "Alert status red. Unknown contacts detected approaching Keth Mortis. All defensive systems to maximum readiness." The war leaders rushed to the chamber's observation deck, looking out through the massive transparasteel windows at the space around their fortress. What they saw made their blood run cold. Ships were appearing out of nowhere, not arriving through hyperspace or emerging from behind planets, simply materializing in the void like ghosts becoming solid. First one, then three, then a dozen, each one similar to the vessel Zextar had encountered, but subtly different. Some were larger, others smaller. Some bristled with visible weapons, others seemed almost organic in design. Within minutes, 50 human ships surrounded the fortress. Fortress Commander to Council, the intercom crackled. We're detecting massive energy buildups from the unknown vessels. Sir, their combined firepower readings are... they're off the scale. Supreme Warleader Gaxton moved to the communication console with grim determination. Open a channel. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of one of the human vessels. This captain was different from the one Zextar had met. Older, with gray hair and eyes that held the weight of years. When he spoke, his voice carried absolute authority. I am Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have 18 hours remaining from the original deadline we gave your fleet commander. Admiral, Gaxton began. I am Supreme Warleader Gaxton, Supreme Commander of all Kethvar military forces. Perhaps we can discuss this situation like civilized beings. Webb's expression didn't change. Civilized beings don't build empires on slavery and conquest, Warleader. We've been monitoring your communications since Captain Chen made contact. Your council has been debating whether our demands were a bluff, whether you should test our resolve. The casual admission that they had been listening to supposedly secure military communications sent another chill through the assembled war leaders. Consider this a demonstration, Webb continued. One of the human ships, a sleek vessel perhaps half the size of the others, moved toward a nearby asteroid. The asteroid was roughly the size of a small moon, a lifeless chunk of rock and metal that served as a navigation marker. The ship fired a single beam of silver light. The asteroid didn't explode. It didn't break apart or melt. It simply unraveled. The war leaders watched in horrified fascination as molecular bonds dissolved and the entire asteroid became a cloud of its component atoms, which then dispersed into space like cosmic dust. That was a low-power demonstration shot, Webb explained calmly. Each of our ships carries weapons capable of doing the same thing to planets. Inhabited planets. This is madness, Nexrath whispered. No species should have such power. We didn't ask for it, Webb replied, somehow hearing her words despite the supposedly private communication. We developed it out of necessity. 3,000 years ago, the Kethvar Empire was just beginning its expansion. We saw what you did to the first worlds you conquered. The cities you burned. The populations you enslaved. We decided then that we would never allow ourselves to become your victims. So you hid in the darkness, Gaxton said, skulking in the shadows, while honorable warriors fought and died. Honorable? Webb's voice carried a note of incredulous anger. You speak of honor while your empire is built on the bones of 1,000 conquered civilizations? While children are sold in your markets, and entire species have been driven to extinction for the crime of resisting your rule. Images began appearing on the screen, scenes from across Kethvar space, slave markets where sentient beings were bought and sold like livestock, mining colonies where workers died by the thousands to extract resources for the empire, worlds stripped bare of all life to feed the military machine. We've been watching, War Leader, recording, waiting for the day when we would have the power to put an end to it. That day has come. What do you want? Gaxton asked through gritted teeth. What we've always wanted. An end to the expansion. Freedom for the enslaved. Compensation for the conquered. The transformation of your empire from a plague upon the galaxy into something that can coexist with other civilizations. And if we refuse, then we stop being subtle about our presence in the galaxy. The implications hung in the air like a death sentence. The humans had remained hidden for 3 millennia, developing godlike technology, while the Kethvar conquered openly. If they chose to emerge fully, to use their advanced capabilities without restraint, you would destroy us, Gaxton said. We would do what's necessary to protect the innocent, Webb corrected. Your people would survive. We're not monsters. But your empire, your military, your ability to threaten others, that would end. Permanently. War leader Tixvara stepped forward. You speak of protection, but you threaten genocide. How are you different from us? We don't build our civilization on the suffering of others, Webb replied. We don't expand by conquest or maintain order through fear. We simply refuse to allow others to do so unopposed. 17 hours, war leader, another voice added, Captain Chen, appearing on a secondary screen. The deadline stands. Withdraw from all territories acquired in the last 50 years. Begin dismantling the slave trade. Transform your empire into a force for stability rather than conquest. Or face the consequences. The screens went dark, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Recommendations? Gaxton asked finally. We could attempt to contact other major powers, suggested Nexrath. The Vorthan hegemony. The Crystal Courts. The Machine Collective. If we unite against this threat, with what? Zextar asked bitterly. Did you see what their weapons did to that asteroid? The combined fleets of every known civilization wouldn't last an hour against technology like that. There has to be something, Yexmara insisted. Some weakness, some limitation. No technology is perfect. Perhaps, Gaxton mused. But are we willing to risk the survival of our entire species to find out? These humans have had 3,000 years to prepare for this moment. They know our capabilities, our tactics, our weaknesses. They've planned for every contingency. So what do you suggest? Tixvara demanded. Surrender? Abandon everything our ancestors built? I suggest we consider the possibility that our ancestors built their empire on a foundation of suffering that was always destined to collapse, Gaxton said quietly. The humans offer us a choice. Evolution or extinction. Perhaps it's time to choose evolution. Through the observation windows, the human fleet waited in perfect formation. 50 ships that could, if the demonstrations were accurate, reduce entire worlds to cosmic dust. Silent guardians that had watched from the darkness for millennia, finally emerging to hold the galaxy's greatest empire accountable for its crimes. In 16 hours and 43 minutes, the Kethvar Empire would make a choice that would determine not just their own fate, but the destiny of every civilization in the galaxy. The age of unchecked expansion was ending. The question was whether the Kethvar would adapt to the new reality or be swept away by forces beyond their comprehension. In the darkness between stars, more human ships waited. How many? None could say, but their message was clear. The galaxy had new guardians now, and they would not tolerate the old ways of conquest and domination. The empire that had ruled for 3,000 years had 18 hours to decide whether it wanted a future at all. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called in haste, representatives from 47 different species gathering via quantum link from across known space. The holographic chamber buzzed with nervous energy as beings who normally couldn't agree on basic trade regulations found themselves united by a single topic: the humans. Ambassador Velthari of the Crystal Courts spoke first, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. The reports are confirmed. A human fleet has surrounded the Kethvar homeworld. 17 of their most heavily defended systems have gone dark. Not destroyed, corrected Ambassador Gromax from his mining consortium. Occupied. The humans are. Precise. Military installations disabled. Government buildings secured. But civilian populations left unharmed. Senator Zephyra leaned forward, her feathered crest fluttering with agitation. In 72 hours, they've accomplished what the rest of us couldn't do in 3 centuries. The Kethvar Empire is simply gone. The weight of those words settled over the assembly. For most of galactic history, the Kethvar had been an unchanging constant, expanding, conquering, threatening. Now, overnight, they had been reduced to nothing more than a species under occupation by mysterious humans emerging from the cosmic dark. What do we know about their capabilities? Asked the representative from the Hive Minds Collective. Its insectoid features betraying no emotion. According to the surviving HFY reports, Ambassador Velthari began. A single human vessel can atomize dreadnought-class ships with casual ease. Their technology appears to be centuries, perhaps millennia ahead of anything we've encountered. And their intentions? That's what has us confused, Senator Zephyra admitted. Based on historical precedent, a species with such overwhelming military superiority should have begun their own expansion by now. Instead, they're rebuilding. Images appeared in the center of the chamber. Live feeds from former HFY territories. What the assembled representatives saw defied their expectations. On the slave world of Mortis Prime, human ships had arrived not as conquerors, but as liberators. Massive vessels deployed not weapons, but prefabricated shelters, medical facilities, and food distribution centers. Humans in simple clothing worked alongside freed slaves, teaching them to use advanced farming equipment and water purification systems. "They're giving away technology," whispered the Gromax ambassador in amazement. "Medical scanners that can cure genetic disorders, power cells that could run cities for centuries, matter converters that can transform raw materials into anything needed." On another world, human engineers were helping rebuild cities destroyed by HFY bombardment decades ago. But these weren't crude reconstructions. The humans were teaching advanced architectural techniques, showing local populations how to build structures that could weather any storm, provide perfect climate control, and generate their own energy from ambient cosmic radiation. "This doesn't follow any historical pattern," the hive mind representative noted. "Conquerors exploit. These humans are investing." "Perhaps that's the point," suggested a new voice. The assembly turned to see a human figure materializing in their midst. Not a hologram, but an actual presence transported by technology they couldn't even begin to understand. The human was unremarkable in appearance, average height, brown hair, wearing simple clothing that could have come from any of a dozen worlds. But when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Forgive the intrusion," she said with a slight smile. "I'm Director Sarah Chen of the Terran Integration Council. I thought it was time we introduced ourselves properly." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, questions, demands, accusations. Chen waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. "You're wondering about our intentions. That's understandable. For 3,000 years, you've lived in a galaxy where power meant conquest, where strength was measured by how much suffering you could inflict. You've forgotten that there are other ways to build a civilization. What gives you the right to decide the fate of entire empires?" Ambassador Velthari demanded, her crystalline form flashing with agitation. "The same right that gave the HFY the authority to enslave and conquer for 3 millennia, Chen replied calmly. "The right of superior force. The difference is how we choose to use that force." Senator Zephyra's feathers ruffled with indignation. "You speak of choice, but you've occupied their worlds, dismantled their government, scattered their fleets." "Yes," Chen agreed simply. "We ended their ability to harm others. But look at what we've done with that victory." Number 12. Number 12. Number 12. Number 12. Number 12. New images appeared. Former HFY slave worlds where humans were teaching advanced agriculture, medicine, and engineering. Ex-slaves who had never seen clean water now operated fusion reactors. Children who had been destined for markets were learning to manipulate matter at the molecular level. "You're creating dependencies," the Gromax ambassador accused, "making them reliant on your technology." "Are we?" Chen gestured. And the images changed to show the same world 6 months later. The humans were gone, but the infrastructure remained. Former slaves had become teachers, passing on the knowledge they'd learned to others. Children were improving upon the designs they'd been shown, innovating beyond what even human technology had achieved. "We don't create dependencies," Chen explained. "We create opportunities. Every technology we share comes with complete documentation, full understanding, and the encouragement to improve upon it." "But why?" The question came from the hive mind representative. "What do you gain from this?" "Generosity." Chen was quiet for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. Stability. Peace. The knowledge that our children can grow up in a galaxy where might doesn't automatically make right, where civilizations can develop without fear of conquest or enslavement. The HFY served a purpose, Ambassador Velthari pointed out. They were brutal, yes, but they also maintained order. Their expansion absorbed smaller conflicts, prevented larger wars. Did they? Chen asked. Or did they simply ensure that violence was always directed downward, toward those too weak to resist? Order through oppression isn't order at all. It's delayed chaos. The human gestured again, and the chamber's displays showed a galaxy-wide map. Trade routes that had been disrupted by HFY expansion were reopening. Species that had been driven to the edge of extinction were rebuilding. Conflicts that had simmered for centuries were being resolved through negotiation rather than force. In 6 months without the HFY Empire, galactic trade has increased by 30%. 14 species have contacted neighbors they hadn't spoken to in decades to resolve old disputes. 7 worlds have been reclaimed by their original inhabitants. The pirates and raiders that used to hide in HFY space are surrendering rather than face human intervention. You're remaking the galaxy in your image, Senator Zephyra accused. No, Chen replied firmly. We're giving the galaxy the chance to remake itself. Every world we've liberated has been offered a simple choice. Accept our aid and guidance in rebuilding, or go their own way with our blessing. Many have chosen independence. We respect that choice. And if they use that independence to become the next HFY empire? The Gromax ambassador challenged. Chen's smile was cold as winter space. Then we'll stop them. Just as we stopped the HFY. The galaxy has endured its last empire built on conquest and slavery. That age is over. The implications of her words settled over the assembly like a blanket. The humans weren't just ending one empire. They were ending the very concept of empire as the galaxy had known it. No more expansion through conquest. No more civilization built on the suffering of others. No more might making right. What happens to the rest of us? Asked Ambassador Velthari quietly. Whatever you choose, Chen replied. The Crystal Courts, the Zephyrian Republic, the Gromax Consortium, the Hive Minds. You all built your civilizations through cooperation and mutual benefit, rather than conquest. You have nothing to fear from us, but you'll be watching. We've always been watching. The difference now is that we're no longer hiding. The dark spaces between the stars, where we built our civilization, we're opening them up. Any species that wants to explore, to learn, to grow, you're welcome in human space. We'll share our knowledge freely, just as we have with the former HFY territories. And the HFY themselves? They're adapting, Chen said with something that might have been pride. It turns out that a species can be quite remarkable when they're not channeling all their energy into conquest. Former HFY warriors are becoming engineers, building the infrastructure they once destroyed. Their strategic minds are being put to work solving logistical challenges rather than planning invasions. Some are even exploring the dark sectors, learning to see the universe through human eyes. The chamber fell silent as the representatives digested this information. The galaxy they had known, dominated by the looming threat of HFY expansion, marked by constant low-level conflicts and the ever-present fear of conquest, was gone forever. In its place was something unprecedented, a galaxy where the most powerful military force was dedicated to preventing conquest rather than enabling it. This will change everything, whispered Senator Zephyra. Yes, Chen agreed. It will. The question is whether you'll help shape that change or simply react to it. Humanity spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment. Learning, growing, developing not just technology but wisdom. We'd like to share both. What's the catch? The hive mind representative asked bluntly. No species offers this much for nothing in return. Chen's smile was genuine this time, warm and inviting. The catch is that you'll have to learn to live in a galaxy where cooperation is rewarded more than conquest, where knowledge shared multiplies rather than diminishes, where the measure of a civilization isn't how much it can take, but how much it can give. She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Some of you will find that harder than others. And if we refuse your vision of this new galaxy? Ambassador Velthari asked. Then you refuse it, Chen said simply. We won't force our way of life on anyone. But we also won't allow anyone to force their way of life on others. The choice is yours, just as it's been for every species we've encountered. The only thing that's changed is that choosing conquest and enslavement is no longer a viable option. With that, she began to fade from view, her form becoming translucent, as whatever technology had brought her there prepared to take her away. Consider our offer, her voice echoed as her image disappeared. The universe is vast, and there's room for everyone to prosper. You just have to be willing to let others prosper alongside you. She was gone, leaving the assembled representatives alone with the weight of decision. Outside their meeting space, the galaxy continued its transformation. Former slaves learned to be free. Ex-conquerors learned to build rather than destroy. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, humanity continued its patient watch. Guardian angels with the power of gods and the wisdom to use that power sparingly. The Kethvar Empire was dead. The age of unchecked expansion was over. The question facing the galaxy now was simple. What would they build in the place of what had fallen? For the first time in 3,000 years, the answer was entirely up to them. 3 months later, the first joint human galactic research station opened in what had once been contested space. Scientists from 17 different species worked together to unlock the secrets of faster-than-light communication. The facility was protected not by weapons, but by the simple understanding that it served everyone's interests. 6 months after that, the first independent world to request human aid completed its transformation from a resource extraction colony into a center of learning. Their children, who had once been destined for the mines, were now developing new forms of art that incorporated mathematics and physics in ways that astounded even human observers. And in the deepest dark sectors, human exploration vessels continued their quiet work, seeking out other civilizations that might be hiding in the cosmic shadows, offering them the same choice that had transformed the galaxy. Join the community of species working together toward a brighter future. Or remain hidden but protected from those who would exploit their isolation. The galaxy had been stunned by the appearance of a single human ship in the heart of battle. But the real shock came afterward, as species after species discovered that the most powerful military force in known space was also the most generous, the most patient, and the most committed to ensuring that everyone had the chance to reach their potential. It was a lesson that would echo through the ages. True strength wasn't the power to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to use that power at all.